to be taking you through sewing the Harry woven dress. This is available in a top version and a dress version in both a round neck and a V-neck, and today I'll be sewing the V-neck dress version. So I've got all of my pattern pieces cut out here and my neck facings fused. I've got my construction sheet at the ready, so let's get started sewing. Here are some helpful hints for sewing the Harry woven dress. Style-like seam allowances are 1 cm or 3/8 of an inch and 6 mm or 1/4 inch at necklines. This is just to reduce the bulk in this area. Seam allowances are always printed on each pattern piece with a dashed line. The wide encased elastic is stitched on the inside of the front and back body. The 3 tucks on each sleeve face up towards the shoulder. There is a loop and button at the back neck. This can be eliminated if you're sewing the V-neck. To do this, just sew the back neck facing and the center back body seams. The dress has inseam pockets and these are optional. The trickiest part of sewing this dress is the sleeve elastic. This is encased in half the sleeve hem on either side of the undersleeve seam, but don't worry, I'll take you through this later on in the tutorial. To start off, we need to neaten each center back seam with an overlocker or serger. With right sides facing, sew the center back seam, stopping at the back split notch, then press the seam open. Neaten around the edges of each elastic casing with an overlocker or serger. With the right side of the top edge of the casing facing the wrong side of the back body, pin the top long edge of the casing to the body where marked on the pattern. This is using the top line on the elastic casing marking, so the raw edge of the bottom of the facing will be closest to the neckline. Once in place, sew the elastic casing to the back body, leaving 1 cm or 3/8 of an inch free at both ends of the casing. Press the seam allowance, 1 cm or 3/8 of an inch, of the lower edge of the casing to the inside. Pin each short end of the elastic to each short end of the casing at 1 cm or 3/8 of an inch seam allowance and sew the elastic to the casing. Fold the casing down so that the elastic is encased and pin the casing to the body. Edge stitch down each short end and across the base of the casing to secure the casing in place to the body. Be careful not to catch the elastic as you sew along the base, and you'll need to pull the elastic through as you go. From the right side, you'll now have visible stitching around the casing. Now you need to repeat the process of sewing the elastic casing for the front body. At this point, I also stay stitch around the neckline in order to stop the neckline from stretching as you sew. Following the notches and the arrows on the pattern, pin the 3 tucks on the front and back sleeves. The tucks face upward on the right side of the fabric towards the shoulder. Baste across the top of the tucks to hold them in place. This is an optional step. With right sides facing, sew the front and back shoulder seams together, making sure that you're matching the notches and the folds of the tucks together. As the shoulder seam runs to the end of the sleeve, this will secure the tucks in place if you haven't basted them in the previous step. Neaten the shoulder seams with an overlocker or serger and press towards the back. Please excuse the change of overlocking thread colour here, I had to share with our sample machinist. With right sides facing, fold the loop piece in half lengthways and sew together with a 6mm or 1/4 inch seam allowance. Using a rouleau loop turner or safety pin, turn out your loop to the right side. Make a loop shape and stitch across the ends to secure. Pin the loop so that it is facing inwards to the left top back seam where marked on the pattern, 6mm down from the raw edge of the neckline. Sew the loop to the centre back seam line. Once the facing is sewn, the loop will face outwards. With right sides together, sew the centre front seams of the V-neck facings. Stitch from the base of the facing and finish at the star marking on the pattern. This is 6mm or 1/4 inch from the cut edge of the neck. With right sides together, sew the front and back shoulder seams of the facing together and press open. Neaten the outer edges of the facing with an overlocker or serger. With right sides together, pin the neck facing to the neck, matching the centre front and shoulder seams together. Sew the facing to the body with a 6mm or 1/4 inch seam allowance. Start sewing at the centre front and stitch around to the centre back. Once you reach the corner, keep the needle down, turn the corner and stitch down the length of the facing. Repeat for the opposite side. Clip the corners and turn out to the right side. Understitch close to the seam on the side of the facing. Now that you've turned your facing and neckline out to the right side, you'll see that the loop is now facing outwards. With right sides facing, pin one set of the pockets to the front side seam between the notches, and sew only between the notches marked on the pattern. Clip at the notches and understitch close to the seam on the side of the pocket bag. Flip the pocket bag to the wrong side of the dress and press, making sure you flip out the little notches, creating a step for the pocket. With right sides facing, sew the outer edges of the second set of pockets to the pockets that are already sewn to the front side seam. Note that the straight edge of the under pocket is left free to sew to the back body's side seam. Neaten the outer edges of the pockets with an overlocker or serger. With right sides facing, sew the front side seam to the back side seam from the sleeve opening to the hemline, making sure that you don't catch the front pocket opening when you're sewing through the back pocket. Clip the curve of the underarm seam to release the fabric in this area. Neaten with an overlocker or serger and press the seam towards the back. Neaten the sleeve openings with an overlocker or serger. Pin and sew the short ends of the cut elastic to the inside of the sleeve between the notches marked on the pattern. Fold the hem to the inside and pin, creating a casing for the elastic. This is the tricky bit of sewing this style, which is encasing the elastic to the sleeve opening. So just go slow while you're doing this, and remember to just pull the elastic through while you're sewing in order to make the sleeve sit flat. And just be careful not to rope or twist the hem of the sleeve because this part of the sleeve is cut on the bias. Neaten the hem of the skirt with an overlocker or serger. Turn the hem to the inside at the notch marked on the pattern, and once in place, machine stitch or hand stitch the hem. I like to pre-press my hemline before sewing instead of pinning, so I can just sew along the overlocking using it as a guide. Sew the button to the right-hand side of the back body to align with the loop, and press your new dress or top.